department. And I just wanted to get this webinar started. Scott Restivo will be leading it with a demonstration of the request management system in SharePoint Office 365. Then we're going to look at a demo. So we'll have an overview, a demo, and then we're going to go into some questions. I'll be manning the questions, so if anyone has any along the way, please let us know and we'll stop periodically to answer them if they are pertinent to what we're talking about in the moment, and otherwise we will talk about them at the end. So take it from here, Scott.
Okay, thanks, Jocelyn. That's great, and thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We're going to try and keep it to 30 or 40 minutes and have time for questions at the end. As Jocelyn pointed out, there is a place for questions in the webinar screen that you can enter in, and we'll try and answer them during the webinar. If not, we'll get to them after. So we're going to talk today about building a request management system inside of SharePoint and Office 365. I am with Crow Canyon Software. Okay, let's go here. Here we go. We've been around for 20 years now, and we've been doing applications and programming and forms and workflow solutions, business process automation inside the Microsoft space for all that time. We started in the Outlook and Exchange public folders way back when, and then moved over to SharePoint in 2007 when it came out, and now we're fully focused on SharePoint and Office 365, building business applications that are out of the box and ready to go. We have our Nitro Studio, which is a forms and workflow business process automation solution, no-code solution if you want to build applications yourselves. And we also do a number of custom solutions for people who want to integrate with databases or do other more involved implementations on top of SharePoint. So some of the business applications we have out of the box are listed here. You can see them also on our website. They include core business applications like help desk, service desk, facilities, work orders, equipment, tracking, onboarding. We have developed all these inside of the SharePoint and Office 360 environment. And when I say SharePoint, it includes on-premises, 2013, 2016, 2019, as well as Office 365. They work in both situations. So today we're going to focus on the request management side of things. But I want to point out that what's underlying these applications is our Nitro Studio platform, which has taken SharePoint and enhanced it quite a bit. So what we're going to address is request management today, and request management inside a business is a very, very critical function that it be handled right. It could be coming from many different locations, different departments, different users. All kinds of many of the things that go on in a business are requests. There's IT trouble tickets and hardware requests and access requests. There's facilities, moves, and equipment management and fixes. There's contract document and management. We create a document, update a document, renew a document. The human resources has many, many requests, type of requests, onboarding, leave, benefits, travel, et cetera, purchasing. And the list goes on and on and on, because there's just mainly so many different things a business has to deal with as far as requests from employees, requests from customers, whether they're questions, complaints, access, purchase, fixes, all kinds of things. And managing these things efficiently is very important for a business to be successful, to be able to increase productivity and reduce the overhead of the friction of running a business, as they say, and which increases profits, or also if you're a nonprofit, it will increase your ability to provide services to your members, or government to your citizens. So it's all in all, it's very important to have a very efficient request management system and implement it, and SharePoint Office 365 is a very good way to do it. So people try other ways of doing managing requests, and some with different kinds of success. We often find people are still using email, spreadsheets, or paper forms to manage requests, and people are already seeing how those technologies are outdated, and those technologies are and I don't even know if paper forms really is a technology, I guess in some sense, but those old methods of doing things are not working for them, because emails, they might get lost in the clutter of the email box and not know who's being assigned to what. Spreadsheets, who has access to the spreadsheet, how do you update it? Paper forms are very difficult to shuffle around. And then there's also legacy systems that people are using. One of the big ones these days is the InfoPath forms, and we are making a strong case for our Nitro Studio in our applications to replace the InfoPath forms, which are being deprecated. We're doing another webinar on that in a couple of weeks. I'll give you information on that, and we've been developing guides and processes for moving off of InfoPath. That's a whole nother webinar. I won't go into that right now, I just want to point out that that is one kind of legacy system that we can move off of using our SharePoint Office 365 and the Nitro forms and workflows, also Lotus Notes, Microsoft Access, and then other systems. So there's a reason to move off of these other systems into a more efficient SharePoint and Office 365 based system. Now, SharePoint out of the box does give you a number of features and capabilities, and this is what we build off of. Their sites and site collections, lists and libraries, columns, permissions, integration with AD, all these different things you can do inside of SharePoint and Office 365. I'm sure if you're using that SharePoint at all, you're very familiar. This is both on the on-premises and the online world. You're familiar with the capabilities that SharePoint has. But in our development, we found that it needed much more. It needs ability to have different kinds of forms, different kind of dynamic forms, portals, workflows, custom columns, all these different things that are needed to build really true applications. And that's what we've done with our Nitro Studio. Nitro Studio brings in this. We use it to build our own applications. We build a request management system using different forms. I'll show you that in a moment when we go to the demo. Workflows, custom actions, reporting portals, all these different capabilities, including now chatbots and AI services that we bring into SharePoint on to make it so it can really provide a business process automation platform for people. People can use it in one way they can use it is as an application layer. Okay, let's take a look at this slide for a moment. The orange part here is saying that this Nitro Studio is a layer on top of the SharePoint or Office 365 that can build the applications. We can build our applications out of that. And we'll show you the Nitro Studio in a moment, and we'll focus on the request management aspect of it. It's an application layer that Crow Canyon has developed with forms, workflows, actions, portals, et cetera, that we need. And we could show you that specifically and focus on that Nitro Studio if your interest is building forms and workflows from a platform like that from scratch. Maybe you tried Power Apps and Flow and you're not really happy with them, or maybe you tried other systems. But this is a really good middle of the road system that provides a lot of functionality, and we use it in and our applications use it in real time. It's a real strong part of our organization and what underlies our applications. So you can also use it to build your own applications. So you can it powers up our applications, you also can build it to build your own. Because our applications can't fit every need, and that's where we get a little bit into request management. There's so many different kinds of request management. You can't have an application out of the box that fits every situation and every circumstance in every organization all over the world, in every vertical industry, whether it's healthcare, finance, education, government, manufacturing. There's just so many different kinds of requests that we have a request management system that's highly flexible to meet your particular needs, because the Nitro Studio provides that layer on top of SharePoint Office 365 where you can build the forms, the workflows, the actions that you need in order to meet your particular requirements. Whether you're replacing a legacy system like InfoPath or building something from scratch or replacing a paper or email-based system, this is how it works. So let's go look at the request management system itself. But before we do that, if you don't mind, I was going to pop up a poll to get more information about what kind of request management you're looking for. So the first one is about, I'm interested in finding more about, here it comes, it should be up there on the screen. And if you can take a moment to answer, take a few seconds, 15 or 20 seconds here to go through that. If people want to give some responses, you can choose multiple choices on this one too. Should be able to anyway, and see what kind of requests you're looking for so we can talk about those things. Okay, we'll give it a couple more seconds here. Most people have jumped in. Thank you very much for doing that. Okay, so let's go with that, I guess, right now. I'll close the poll so we keep moving along with this webinar, and I'll share the results. Do you see that? I don't see it on my screen. I guess you see it. Jocelyn, you see the poll results?
Sure can. Everybody, thanks for polling with us.
Okay, we can see that there's a lot of multi-departmental interest, and that's what we have in our portal. We have a portal, employee self-service portal, that will allow you to embrace multiple departments, multiple types of requests in one user portal. You can also do a portal that's just for the single type, of like an IT portal or an HR portal. But we also have the ability to span multiple departments. People are interested in IT help desk, IT support. That's a very strong focus of ours. We have a standard, a professional, and premium editions of an IT help desk. And we also do onboarding and purchasing and others. So it's good. It's a good range. It's a good mix. And you can see that request management can apply in many, many different situations. So let's go into the demo. I'll switch over to say hide the poll, and I'll go over to the demo. Let's see, what do we got here? Okay, no, not thank you yet. We're not at the end yet. So now I'm going to go over to our screen here and show you this is in Office 365. It brought up this access request system. Just an example program, a sample program that we can use in this webinar to show some principles of what we're doing. So this is a simple access request system where people can enter in a new item and generate a request using a Nitro form. So when the form comes up, this form has several questions and several choices they can make. It has a cascaded lookup where they can decide, I want to have, I need access to the Crow Canyon help desk, for example. And they fill in other information. It's filled in automatically, but from the requester, from the Active Directory, requester's information is filled in. I'm logged in as admin right now, so it fills that in. And then they could submit it, and this is where, several things are going on here that we should talk about. One is the forms. How does a person enter in the request, the inquiry, the question, the complaint, whatever it is? How do they enter it in? Well, we're looking right now at a SharePoint form. That's one way they can enter it in, and this form can be highly doctored to fit your exact needs as far as how it looks, and we have a form designer that'll do that. I'll show you that to some degree during this webinar. There's a lot to that form designer, and many, many features to it that set up how the form looks and what fields are on it. This is just done one particular example of how a form can be done. And this is one way for users to enter in information. They might want to come to SharePoint, open a form, fill it out, and then submit it. And at that point, workflows will take over. There are other ways to submit requests also. What about email? A lot of people still use email. Okay, you send in an email. Our email sync process, which is part of Nitro Studio, will convert that to a new request and run the appropriate workflows. So the user does not necessarily need to go into SharePoint or Office 365 in order to make a request. They can simply send in an email, and that email can be parsed, and if it has certain subject line or whatever, certain characteristics to it, we can take certain actions to implement certain workflows, or just implement one generic workflow that runs. It might require an approval process, it might require notifying people, but the user can enter it in by email as well as by this SharePoint form. They can do it either way. Another option that we offer in our Nitro Studio, and I think this one is a lot of interest to people, is a portal. So you have a system. I'm going to show an HR portal right here, for example, and we have this in classic and modern. This is a classic look. We also have it in the modern UI. It's a portal that's highly configurable with these portal settings right here to arrange the links you want, the notifications you want, the background image, the logo, what it says up here. Everything can be modified to suit your particular corporate branding or your particular messaging you want to give to your users. And notice also there's a knowledge base here, submit a ticket, view a ticket, and submit it, and go to a knowledge base. The point here is that I showed you at first that access request form in SharePoint. That's one way for users. Another way is for them to send in an email. But a way that seems to be very attractive among our customers is to develop this kind of portal where they can come in and the end users come in and submit a request. And here we have just a particular HR portal. As I said earlier, it can span multiple departments as an employee self-service portal also, where you don't just have HR requests, but you also have purchasing or IT and HR all mixed or whatever, all mixed up in different links here with a knowledge base that can help them get an answer maybe right away. Also information over here like FAQs. We can also implement a chatbot. We can talk about that. Some AI elements to this. It's not as simple as it looks. You can put a chatbot on here, and that could give some interaction with the user if you want to go that route. Also, the knowledge base can use natural language processing, so the person can type in, I need to know how to update my payroll record or something, and the natural language processing will allow natural language to come in instead of typing in payroll update, some specific keywords to search on. So we're using some of the AI services available, so Azure Cognitive Services, to amplify the power and capabilities of HR in order to make it easier of any portal, in order to make it easier for end users to get their answers more quickly and faster, so that they can get their responses and get back to work and not have to engage the staff at all. So you save time at the end user end and you save time at the staff end if you implement those kind of processes. But anyway, if they come here and you have a nice look, you have your nice logo, your colors, maybe a different image in the back, and the person comes in and opens up a request. They want to make a new HR request in this case. They can come in and have a nice form to look at here to enter in this request. It has a lot of the features that I talked about in that access request, where it's filled in automatically by the Active Directory of who it is. We know who it is. It has a title, and then you can add as many fields as you want on this. Here's one other interesting thing you can do and make it dynamic. You go here and say, okay, it's a leave request. I'm going to show up this part right here so that they can fill that in. I put it in green so it shows up. We can arrange the fields differently, like in columns and all that. But what I'm showing here is that because I chose the leave request category, the end user chose that, it is now able to show another section dynamically in order to give them the ability to, give them notice, fill this part out. You don't need to see that in other cases. If it's not a leave request, it would not be there, and then you can do other things like have a benefits section or things like that. You can do a lot with this form. And now this is where it's going to pop up another poll. I don't know if I will, because we were trying to ascertain and determine whether people on the webinar are like more at the managerial and director levels, or whether they're at developer level. I mean, what your job role is, in order to understand whether I should direct into like the down and dirty details of how these forms are created, or stick with the more business process of benefits on that. So I'm trying to span both worlds here. If people are interested in knowing more about the intimate details of how to create these kind of forms, I can go right into here and show you this forms designer. And this is a lot of fun. I love showing this. I could go on for a long time showing you all the features of this, but I don't want to drill down too much for the people who are more at the director and manager level, because they'll be like, eyes will glaze over. Developers, I guess I put myself more in that category. I get kind of excited by this kind of stuff and all the things you can do with all the cool little features and things. But just to go over it lightly here, you can change these sections, you can change these forms, you can change what it is. You can easily add any column from the list in here. If you want to put in a case ID, you just pop it in. All this stuff is very easy to manipulate and manage. If you want to go here and configure this to be a different kind of setting with 2 columns, you can do that. See, all of a sudden it looks different now. You can do things like make this tabs instead of sections. I'm just doing this very briefly so I don't keep the managers and the developers interested here. So now we have the tab instead of sections. You can create different colors. You can do, I think really a lot of amazing things with this, including, what information gets filled in, what kind of lookups, what items are associated with this. Go to contact external databases, put in a signature pad. I can show you some of that in a moment. And there's a lot of advanced feature if you want to put in your custom JavaScript, CSS, and do other kind of format event actions. I get a lot of these kind of questions when people are on InfoPath forms replacement. Well, InfoPath can do this. Can you do it? InfoPath can do that. Can you do that? And the question almost all the time is yes. And a lot of it is through some of these features here that are more attractive to the more advanced user, I guess, and the forms developer. So here we are in another thing you can do here that's really cool is you can add custom actions to this. So at the top, you could have buttons, or anywhere in the form really, you can have buttons that will institute something like escalate this form or approve this form or move it over to this other department or things like that. You can make this form very, very interactive and dynamic. Now, I'm not going to publish that so I don't overwrite all the work of the portal that we had and we were looking at a moment ago. But if I did, what do I want to do? I want to cancel. I don't want to publish. Cancel. Yes. Confirm that I want to cancel. Okay. So I just want to get back to the portal here that we were looking at. We were looking at this portal, this HR portal, and showing that, you know, this new request that I opened right here, I just showed you the back end, and anybody who's interested in finding out more about that forms designer and the workflows and actions that can be instantiated from it, let me know, and we'll set up a time to do that. If I drill into it too much here, it would probably go in a different direction than some people want to go with this. So now we have this, you know, they submit it, it goes into the list, it get workflows run, but let me spend a little more time on this portal and show you some other things. We can, the person can go view his or her own requests, or it could be a department level, a manager viewing the department requests or whatever. I'm logged in as admin account, so it's going to show me my request right here. And you can get rid of this goofy picture too, but anyway. So then there's a form here and the person can look in and make a comment on it if they want to update the form for any particular reason. You know, maybe cancel the form. You know, they already answered their question. There's no need to keep it going or whatever. And then also I want to show you some of the other forms we can do here that make it really interesting kind of capability. So here's a direct deposit form, information, interesting social security number. I want to point out that we can make this masked in a way, so when someone submits it, it gets into only certain people can see it, other people don't. You know, it can be very permissioned, I guess you'd call it that way. Other information here, and here's a signature. You can put in a signature here, blah 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 blah, you know, and then have a signature going on too as part of the form. And then there's information on how to complete the form, et cetera, down there. So these are kind of forms we can create and show to the user inside the portal using the Nitro forms, the Nitro portal forms, and have it really exciting and interesting for them. Now, I'm gonna go over here and show you a form showcase we have so you can look at your form, look at some of the forms, samples of the forms we have, and we keep adding to this. So there's a number of forms. You can see they come out in many, many different formats, all done in Nitro Studio. These are all Nitro Studio forms. That's the important point. And we will accept the forms challenge, which is send us a form and we'll see if we can create it in Nitro Studio. And almost all the time we can. If we can't, we might build some new feature into the form designer where we can. But you can see there's a lot of very, very interesting forms here that really have a lot of capabilities and can meet, you know, government standards or compliance standards, as well as just your own corporate guidelines or whatever is necessary for you to have that information filled out that way. So that's a very, I'm going to go here, a very important point I want to make here, that this forms can be very, very specific to your needs and fill the request that's going on. So that's the request management forms entry part I wanted to cover. People can send in the email, it can be converted. They can use a SharePoint form in SharePoint, or they can use one of our Nitro forms inside of SharePoint, or they can use one of our Nitro forms inside of this portal. And we can develop these forms and give them all kinds of different buttons to click here in order to get the different form to come up, and have them fill it out and go into start the process of seeing what they're, start the process of the question or response or whatever they're doing. So it's quite interesting. This is very interesting. Now, I did say that we have it in classic and modern, so I'm gonna just jump over 1 second over to modern, then I'll get back into the forms and not the forms, the workflows and actions, because really forms are one part of it, but workflows and actions are a very important part of request management also, right? Approvals and those kind of things. So here we are back on the IT Help Desk portal. I mean, this is an IT Help Desk portal in a modern design. This was, it's kind of like a showcase of different features. If you really were doing this, you'd put different colors and different things like this, but this is a showcase of what's available in the modern UI. I want to point out that we are very much we are very much in the modern UI for the people who are on Office 365, but we also have the classic portal for the people, and classic for the people who are in SharePoint 2013 or 16 or whatever. Also, a very important point, these are responsive. So if I shrink this down to the mobile phone size, you see that it still comes up quite nicely. This picture of Alaska behind here, if you're interested. Anyway, just point that out. Okay, won't get distracted by that. About Alaska. Here we are back in this portal right here. And what we can do when we edit it, Crow Canyon, that's us, has developed a number of web parts that are applicable to the modern UI portal. Really good work our guys did here. And you can see that there's a number of web parts from Crow Canyon that you can add to the modern UI. This KB listing, URL actions, a dashboard, dials. This is so you can really build a nice looking portal in the modern UI, involving also, I want to point out a couple things, a list roll up of multiple lists. So you've had multiple tickets in multiple departments, you can roll them up and show them right there in the one view. You can also have multiple list view that shows multiple departments that way. It's quite interesting. You can put up a report on the portal for managers. You might want a report, or for staff, you have a report, how many tickets are in, what's the current status, real-time reports like that. Also knowledge-based search, and that knowledge-based search again can use the natural language processing to provide answers that don't require exact keywords, but are more of a common language kind of talk into the in what you type into the search there for the knowledge base. So we developed a number of these that are specifically for the modern UI in order to make the modern UI portal as well as workspaces as functional and capable as possible. So we have the modern UI, we have the classic UI, and you can see the difference obvious between them. Let's see. These are just giving you a range of choices on how to create a request management system. Very important. I spend a lot of time on the forms part and the portal part because how users engage with your system is very important, and how they interact to get them to use it and find it attractive, friendly, intuitive is very important. But we are really let's look at the back end now of the access request as far as workflows and actions go. So I'm going back to our access request system that I started this demo with. And you can see there's an access request that was a form here. Maybe somebody submitted one of the requests through the portal that I just showed you, or an access request portal version, or maybe they submitted it through email, or maybe you as a person got a phone call and just submitted it yourself. So let's see what happens when after it's submitted. You still get the form coming up. You can take a look at it and use all the SharePoint capabilities to see what the list looks like. But when you open up an individual form, you now have viewing the data. You can create associated tasks and subtasks and assign those to different people. Maybe you need to assign something to the SQL administrator or to some other person, and then you have a set of subtasks associated with the access request. This works well for like onboarding, where onboarding usually is multiple departments interacting, so you might have multiple associated tasks going on here. Also, you can put up here in the ribbon custom actions. These are generated through Nitro Studio's custom actions, and you could have these actions take, whatever happens when you press the button. It could be escalate to change a priority, or reassign it to somebody, or and send an email. I mean, not just or, it could be and. It could update the priority, it could send an email, and reassign it to someone. It can do all kinds of as many actions as you want just by pressing the button. You can generate a document. You can assign a generate document. Might be like, okay, I need a certificate of access request that it was approved. So then you can go there and generate a document, things like that. We put this one in to show that you can interact with Flow, Microsoft Flow. You can actually from this is kind of interesting. From the Nitro form, you can run a custom action that runs a flow. So by certain data or information, using certain data and information on the form itself, can be fed to the flow and then that flow can run. And in this case, what we're doing is saying save the attachments on this form. There aren't any, but if there were any, you could save it to OneDrive or whatever you want to do. But that's just one example of what a flow. Flow has many connectors, not just the OneDrive, of course, but the Dropbox and Salesforce and Oracle. I mean, it's it's kind of like a lot. So a lot of opportunities with the flow connectors in order to move, in order to interact our system with the Nitro with other systems on the outside.
Hey, Scott, this is Jocelyn. 2 questions for you. One is, what about bringing in data from different sources? Is that possible?
Yes.
Can you show that?
Yeah.
And secondly, can you copy form settings from one list to another, like a dev list? For example, what if you want to configure a form on a dev list first and then bring the form over to production?
Okay, let me, that's 2 questions. So let me take the first one about the external database. Okay, so we're going here. We're looking at our Nitro Studio now, and this is all the capabilities behind the access request system. And we're going to go to the Nitro forms. Just click that, and we're going to select the access request list because we're on that. And now we're going to go to similar designer as we were looking at that HR form, but this is now on the access request form. And we're going to look at what's here on this form and how this one's configured. So here we have the access request form. One of the capabilities inside of the form designer is external data column. So you can create an external data column that pulls in information. See, it's all very simple, no code, click of the button kind of stuff. So you configure as pull. Let's just say get info from SQL, DB1, I don't know, whatever. So then you can say, okay, you set up your connection string, you can test it, you set up your query, and then parameters, which means map, your results of your query back to certain fields on the form. Let me show you the new mapping here. So it's saying like, map that field to the field that was brought back in the query. And oh no, it's down here, database to SharePoint column map. And sorry, that's where it is. So the database column would be mapped to this column in SharePoint. This database column would be mapped to that one, that kind of thing. So there is I think this is saying that query parameters, you can put parameters from the item itself into the query, so that you can use information. So say someone fills in a box on the form that says, his name or whatever. So you put that into query. Give me back all something based on this person's name, and that parameter is like dynamic based on what the person entered into the form in the first place. So that makes a really kind of interesting way, because you can query the database not just with a static query, but with one that's real live based on data that's inside of the form. Then we query it, it'll bring it back, and then it'll map the data that's returned to the particular column that you set up here in your system to receive that data. And so therefore it shows up in the form in the appropriate place. And that could be a substitute for AD. It could be a customer name, and you query a customer database, and maybe you get their name, address, and all that kind of stuff. Their member, if the membership, it could be member number. We did that for some church, that kind of thing, where you bring in a member number. And then you can also correlate that member number once it's on the form with other tickets and issues that they've had in the past. All kinds of fun and tricky and interesting things you can do with this. It's quite fascinating. And sometimes we say no code, low code, but once in a while you have to add some custom JavaScript to interact with the database. If you need to do that, you can do that. All kinds of things like that. So let's. What was that second question? Oh, about the managing the forms and copying it. So we have here, if you want to go to advanced settings, you can export, import Nitro form settings right here. Export settings for current list and import it into another list. Of course, the list has to have similar columns and similar information in it, but it can be done quite easily. So we have covered both of those questions, I believe, right?
I think so. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
And I have a few more, but we can prompt some more.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I can.
So I mean, some folks are asking the questions of, okay, so what if I need help getting this started and setting it up? Is there a support in place for that?
Yeah, absolutely. We also have, training. I guess I hid this slide, but anyway, training and support, application training, Nitro Studio training. Definitely, we are invested in your success because, obviously it helps both of us to be, if you're successfully using it and evangelizing and excited about using Nitro Studio, that helps spread the word that this is a great tool that has many capabilities and usefulness, and it helps a small company like us get the word of mouth, the WOM, as they say in the marketing world, right? The word of mouth out. That's very important for growing the use of Nitro Studio and the capabilities of it. Okay, what's another question there? Jocelyn?
The only other question you've really answered, folks, but it's just that do we get access to Nitro with the applications when we purchase them?
Yeah,
Chris
if you have an
Buxton's showing
application,
that.
yeah, good question. If you buy like our IT help desk or purchasing or onboarding, whatever, for that one site, you'll be able to use Nitro in that site, because the idea is that should be able to modify the form or workflows and actions in that site for the purpose of that application. So you might have an IT help desk that you get out of the box, but you want to change the form. You want to add some dynamic element to it, or you want to adjust the portal, or you want to what else kind of things you can do, change the workflow is an obvious one, or put on some custom actions, or have a different print template come out, how the form is printed. You might want to change that. So all that is done through the Nitro Studio. That's part of the application. Yes, very definitely. Now, to use it outside of that site, you'd have to get a license for Nitro for either the site, for multiple sites, or for the whole tenancy or farm for that. And then,
Sure.
and a lot of people start there. They start with one, and then they end up, wow, this is so great. We want to use it for all these different processes and whatever, right?
Sure. So then we've got a couple questions like, could end users create their own forms?
Yeah, it depends on the savviness, I guess, of the end user. They certainly can. I mean, the idea is that we're pushing it outside of IT into someone who fairly familiar, comfortable with this kind of environment can come in and modify the form and publish it if you give them the rights, of course. I mean, they have to have the rights to do it, permissions to do it, but it's they can just come in. There's no restriction from them to come in and say add a new column to this form, or a custom action or whatever. Maybe they want to put a custom action up here, or change something on this, or modify something else in the studio, what the print manager does, or whatever. Yeah, definitely they can have access to that.
Great. And then another kind of two-part, one person specifically is targeting the help desk ticketing request system. And can we respond to submitters through the form system? Can you show us that?
Yes, I'll show you that. There's two ways. I mean, well, let's really, one way that can happen that works the best is this. In our Nitro workflows, I don't know if I have any created in this particular access request system, but it's easy enough to create. I should show you the workflows and actions that are possible, and then you'll see that you can do many things based on the the workflows that we're looking at that's coming up right now are ones that run based on system events or events on the list, such as an item's created, an item's modified, there's a certain timer. You know why it's taking so long? It's been slow. It's just a demo environment, so whatever. Anyway, so there's a timer, the timer-based workflows, and also specific times, like every first of the month or every July. And of course, in a demo, it's really slow. What do you want? All right, well, while that's loading, let's go and I'll show you the custom actions also. Custom actions are on a access request list. Custom actions are user initiated. See, the difference is these are user initiated versus happening behind the scenes like the other ones, the Nitro workflows. Nitro workflows happen behind the scenes. These ones right here, Nitro workflows behind the scenes based on certain criteria, such as item created, item modified, item deleted, based on a certain date and time field in the item itself, such as due date or expiration date or start date or response date or whatever date time field you want to put on there. And then there's scheduled ones that happen every such and such day, and like every July 1st or every first of the month or whatever. And then there's conditions that can be put on here in order to say only when an item's created and the category is such and such. When item's created and it's from so and so. Items created and multiple conditions on it, then run these actions and that we're talking about here, and that we're going to list in our system here. And this is really ridiculous.
Hey, well, This is James piping in. I joined the webinar a little late, so hello everyone. Just another question we had while we were in the workflow section. There's a question about exporting importing, exporting the settings for the workflows as well. So if we're talking about the workflows tool, maybe we can touch on that one.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, we can do that. That's in the screen before. Also, we have logging of the workflows too. So, I'm just saying that if the workflow name might be notify person X, whatever, just making something up. Okay, then we're going to go there. Let's say notified manager. I think a little notified manager or something. So then when the item is created and it's from a certain, it's based on certain conditions, or none, you can have no conditions, just everyone that's created, you're going to want to notify the manager through a send mail action. At the same time, you could add any other number of actions when the item is created. What was the original question there, Jocelyn, about when the item's created, was there a question? Well, I just wanted to deal with that specific question, but we don't, I don't.
No, sorry.
Okay, when item's created, you can do any one of these actions or all of them, any number of them.
Okay. So basically, can folks respond to submitters through the point system?
That's just a send mail. That's a send mail. Send mail back to the person who's the sender, obviously, or the requester, whatever field it is. It's going to go to the user in field requester, right? Requester email. It's going to go back to the requester, and it's going to be from, you set all that up, and you can select what mail template you want to use also. There's different mail templates, notify on assignment. Well, you can also edit the mail template and have a mail template come up that is, create a new one, I guess, create a new mail template right here. And then have the name of it, the priority, how important, you put the importance, like high priority, whatever. And then that's the subject. And then you can put in, dear user, thank you very much for submitting your ticket. We'll get to it as soon as possible, whatever. And all the fields can be filled in with the information about what the ID is and who the requester is, and also a link if you want, a link to the item itself, if it's an internal person. All kinds of things you can do with this mail template in order to have it happen when the item is created. It will go through the send mail action. We'll use a mail template that you create in order to send that out. Now, there's a number of other actions. You can update the item by changing the priority or who it's assigned to. You can send it. You can move it if you want to. You also can run things like query a list and then bring back other variables and use that. We get a little more than I want to go into developer mind right here in this webinar. But there's a lot of things you can do that are kind of advanced features here. The custom action is more or less the same, except it's user initiated by pressing a button. So if we look at, like, for instance, the escalate action here, the escalate action has a couple things going on. When a person presses that button, they're going to have what the actions here. Set the priority to high and send an email to James. I guess he's the manager in this case. We could add other actions on here if we wanted. Execute a script, generate a document, invoke a workflow. Invoke workflow is kind of interesting because this is where the flow stuff comes in. You could invoke a SharePoint workflow, a Crocanyon workflow, or a Microsoft flow. And then that's by pressing that button, you can then launch that whatever the workflow is behind the scenes, from the custom action. Generate a document is really interesting because you can generate a document from a Word template where you fill in spaces in the Word template from items on the list itself, the list item you're in. When you press the generate document, it will fill in from there based on the Word template that you created. And then it could save it someplace or attach it as an attachment to that. So it's all kinds of interesting things you can do with the actions here. And you can, this is where it gets really, really interesting because you can kind of combine different actions, or one action can cause another action. I mean, it really gets to where you can build these complex workflows, simple or complex, by using the custom actions and the SharePoint, the Nitro workflows in combination, and even using Microsoft Flow to get whatever you want done. So
I have a
really,
question for you there.
yeah, okay, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
So in terms of multiple steps and sequential processes, what about a sequential workflow where there are multiple steps involved? I think that we're being asked, could we show that step process?
it would be, well, okay, I can say that it's possible and show you some of the rudiments of it. To really do it, let's have a one-on-one demo with whoever's interested in that, to really show you at that, more of a development level, not really developer like code developer, but just at a more technical level, I guess, how to set that up. But basically, it depends on what the exact thing you want to do is. Could it be that uh, when you run this action, you press a button, it runs an action, it does some things, and then it resets the priority, it sets the status, I should say, to some other status. I mean, that's the obvious, moving the thing along, moving an item along the chain of the workflow is to go from one to the other. So then you have another action that runs, maybe a Nitro workflow that runs when the status changes. So then the status changes. So you'd say here, okay, you might have here set priority to high. Let's say set status to in progress, and that action runs. Well, once that item is saved, if there's another Nitro workflow that says when item is modified and status has changed, run this. So now you're doing that step over there in the Nitro workflow. So it's, there's ways to sequentially make it happen, or it could be also dependent on some subtask is done. Then when that subtask is done, it will update the parent. The child task will update the parent by changing the status or changing some field, and that will initiate a workflow on the parent. So the child of your associated items here can act, as an independent item, but also related to the parent. So the child will have certain workflows that run on it, and then when that workflow hits a point where it's going to update something on the parent can then be the workflow on the parent can then be instantiated and ran. See what I mean? It's like you can put these kind of sequence of actions happening. If this happens here, then do that over there. It could even be like timed in the sense where you go in and you set, I mean, this is, all right, you have a child, things like this. You have a child task that says update a timer, a date on the parent. The parent date, somehow it updates a date. And then the parent workflow could say 1 day after that date or 2 days after that date, do something, because you might want to delay for some reason rather than just as soon as it's modified, you might want to run it a day after it's modified, the parent. So there's all kinds of it gets so interesting to me, and I guess that's the developer side of my mind anyway, really interesting in how you can put all this stuff together and make these really, starting from a very kind of simple basis of this custom action and the workflows. When you start tying it all together, you put together these really interesting scenarios that really drive business productivity. I mean, that's what we're talking about: business process automation, productivity, by making things automated and not having users have to go through a whole bunch of steps when things can be done automatically, informing people along the way, updating things along the way, running processes that need to be run along the way, and then monitoring it all. And okay.
So I want to say,
That's a good question. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go back to James's. Okay, go ahead, Jocelyn. I'm gonna talk about the workflow import export as soon as I hear this other question. I mean,
it's not even a question, it's really an emphasis. So one person said, so is this very tech heavy? And I think that what Scott is showing is that it has the capability to becoming a lot more specifically tech heavy depending on the needs. But from the outset, it's very user friendly and accessible to create a series of opportunities for people to move quickly through. So
absolutely, someone's come in and create a form very easily. And within like a half hour, have a form going, and maybe a simple workflow on it, and you're good to go. A custom action. It really depends on. I mean, we build Nitro Studio to cover a wide range of capabilities, from the simplest scenario where it's just a form with an action. You just want to record information. Doesn't even have to have an action. Maybe it does. And it just gives a nice presentation for the people. Now, if people want to get more tech heavy and start to write custom code, well, that's more the advanced level, but it shows that Nitro Studio can be used in those advanced scenarios quite easily for that. So we try and cover both range. So anyway, here we were talking here about import-export of workflows, and here's another case for that same thing with the forms. We come here and Oh, I don't know, where is that, Jane? Do you know where that is? It's somewhere where you can export and import it out, right? Oh, here it
The
is, right
settings,
here.
yeah, right
Yeah,
there.
export workflow setting, and then
And then when
the
we create a new one, there's once you
option to
define
import.
the list, you can import the settings back into it. So if you create a new workflow and set up the list,
That's right. There's option to
you'll get
import.
that import option. Yeah.
Yeah, and also we can see the logs, what's ran, what's run, what hasn't run, you know, and all that real-time monitoring that's going on there. Yeah, if you do a new workflow, um, you can see that there's an option to import. Oh, you have to put the list in first and all that, right, James?
Yeah, define the list, and once you define the list, they'll have another little section come up to for the import file.
Okay. Yeah, give it a name and import it in. So that's a good way to go from dev to production.
I
Right
have another request. So
Yes.
in terms of your reporting options, how does someone track those processes?
The workflow processes, is that what they mean?
I believe so.
Okay. This again, I want to point out that having one-on-one demos where we can address specific questions is really good. We love doing them because it really gets us engaged with the customers and find out what their real requirements are and challenges that are presented to us. And if Nitro Studio can fulfill them or not, and usually it can, but it's good to have that challenge presented. So I will answer that question. I'm just saying that having a one-on-one demo either online. Also, we go to a lot of shows, so we're also a lot of SharePoint Saturday, SharePoint Fest, SharePoint Las Vegas, all those kind of things. So we're available, very available for you to interact and talk and help you move forward with the business process automation in SharePoint and Office 365. That's our world. That's what we do. Reporting along the way. Now let me see. Let me just finish off on this new workflow here. When you choose a list, it's going to give you option to import. See right here, a settings file. All right, I'll leave that to its own for now, and go back to the access request. Now, reporting along the way is a very interesting question because it depends what you want to do. We have ways of formatting this list view so that it will show you different levels of progress, including KPIs and that's one type of progress type thing with our conditional formatting here. I don't know if this is why it's good to have the conversation one-on-one, because I'm not quite sure if this is exactly what you mean on that. We also can we have notifications when an action runs or workflow runs. You also can be notified. But let me show you this part about conditional formatting, where you can come in and then in your list see the progress of different let's see, format type. You can have an icon, a progress bar, and depending on what you want to see. So let's say red when high. So you go here, color is red. I guess it's red enough. And you apply to the column, and it's when the priority is high. So if we go here, priority, save it, and then we can see a red. And this is maybe not quite what you're looking for, but I'm trying to think about. So if I go here, access requests, and if any of these are high, let's see if this works. It should turn it red if I did that right in my quick thing there. Yeah, see those are, well, turn them all red. Okay, so that's what happens when you do things quickly, I guess. So I could go revise that one, and I think I have to put a condition on it. Show column value, apply to column priority. Oh, when the condition, yeah, when the priority is high. That's what I forgot to do. Priority.
So folks, while Scott is finishing this up, we're gonna start wrapping up this webinar. And if you have any further questions, please shoot them into the question section now, so we can try to get to those before the top of the hour.
Oh man, we have to give up on doing this. I'm having so much fun. This is cool. See, now it's just I put the condition on and now it works. So there's also progress bar. The other thing you can do here is use your list views very efficiently to group them by status. What's the status of each? You group them by status here. These are all unassigned, so it wouldn't make much sense, but you could have it at different statuses. And a big part is approvals, which I don't really have time to go into right today, but is it approved? Is it pending approval? Let me show you one different system altogether called purchasing, similar to onboarding, where you actually have dashboards like this. See, I don't know if this is what you mean, but here you're really looking at a purchase order system, a little sophisticated than that simple request management just looking at it, but we could just build that same kind of process in if necessary. This is an interface with saying, okay, this ticket was submitted, this purchase order, purchase request really, was submitted. Let's see, this one, let's get one that has a little more data in it. Like this is test one from admin, I guess, okay. So it's at this status where it's all green, it's pending submission. Let's look at the form, see what what was requested here, purchase request. There's different line items. They want a bunch of sticky notes and something else. So there's you can see here that there is a ways to view the status is, I guess you can't answer directly except through questions, but I wonder if this is the kind of, kind of status that the kind of progress reports that would be of interest to it, to you. So there's all kinds of cool stuff we can do with SharePoint and Nitro
So Scott, I think that we can wrap on the question of, does Crow Canyon offer a trial of the software in any form?
Yeah, we have a Nitro 30-day trial. We also can trial our applications. It's really important to, get in touch to do that. In order to do that, you just got to contact sales, contact us at sales@crowcanyon.com. So, okay, if we're going to wrap this up, Jocelyn wants me to put an end on this. Otherwise, I'll keep going on and on. In fact, I have another webinar coming up on the October 23rd on InfoPath forms, specifically replacing InfoPath, which is a great subject in itself. We do a lot of webinars. James does some, or Ryan does some, our sales guy.
A slide to share there. You have a slide you can share with those dates.
Yeah, good idea. See, it's marketing people keep me on track here. Thanks, Jocelyn. So here we go. What do you do? This is show from current slide. Okay, I'll get that up there. Switch the displays. Here we go. Swap. Okay. All right. So we have a bunch of upcoming, and also Crow Canyon, as it says right here, crowcanyon.com/webinars. We also had a number of events. I'll be going to Ensenada tomorrow, going to San Diego, then driving down to Ensenada for the SharePoint Saturday in Ensenada, Mexico, down in Baja. James is going to Kansas City in a week from Saturday for the Kansas City SharePoint Saturday. We'll be at the Chicago SharePoint Fest and a number of events in 2020, including the big Vegas show in May. So, I really like to meet people in person and talk to them. But if you can't do that, that's fine. We can also go online. You can sales@crowcanyon.com, or there's a demo request up on our website. All kinds of ways to get in touch with us. Love to hear what you're up to and what your needs are, and how we can help out and drive business process automation forward using SharePoint Office 365 along with the Crow Canyon enhancements, additions, features, and Nitro Studio in our applications. So appreciate you joining. Love to hear back from you more on this, what your needs are, and hopefully stay in touch, and we'll have a recording available and send a follow-up email after this webinar. Jocelyn, any more questions, or are we okay? Good to go right now?
I think we're good to go. One last one is you could answer this just audibly, is the view that you were showing in the purchase order form available in the help desk asset management system, or only in purchase order?
We can make our systems do anything you want. If we have I mean, we build it, right?
Awesome, right? Exactly.
You want that, we'll get it for you, if that's important. So so it's there. We have it in purchasing, we have it in onboarding, and there's no reason we couldn't put it into assets and help desk on request if needed as part of it. So yeah, we could
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody. We will follow up with you shortly if you have any questions, and we'll be available to answer more questions if you'd like to ask. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I'll end the webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.